Hello, welcome to DataBank's CISO Corner, where we discuss cybersecurity from the CISO's perspective. I'm Dane Dittemore, Solutions Marketing Director at DataBank, and I'll be your host. Our podcast is for CISOs and security practitioners, those who want a quick scoop, 10 to 15 minutes, and those who want to hear from the experts who do this every day. With me today is Mark Houpt, DataBank's Chief Information Security Officer. Good afternoon, Mark.
Good afternoon, Dane. Great to be with you today.
Great to have you. As many of our listeners already know, Mark leads all things related to security and compliance throughout the company. Mark, let me just let you introduce your team.
Absolutely. I am more than privileged to announce today that we have Callie Schlentz, our compliance team lead here with us today. And we also have Tyler Treat, our security engineering team lead here today with us.
That's fantastic. Well, we hope our listeners and families are well and safe in these very challenging times. We understand the immense human impact that recent events are having on all of us. Today, in episode 2, Mark and his team will be discussing their perspective on the pandemic, specifically continuity of operations, how to keep the business running safe and secure while we and our families try to do the same. Mark, why don't you kick us off?
Absolutely. Thanks, Dane. So first of all, I think it's worthwhile for us just to sit down and talk a little bit about what really needs to happen from a security perspective when we enter into these types of situations, when we have the COVID pandemic. So there's two things that we need to pay attention to as security practitioners. Number one, we cannot, and I stress that most emphatically, we cannot forget to lose focus or forget and lose focus on our continuous monitoring operations. We must continue to watch out for the bad guys that will take advantage of these situations and try and take us down during that period. Throughout the past month or so, 6 weeks, since this really got spun up and started in the United States, I've seen major DDoS attacks. I've seen ransomware attacks. I've seen things over and over again. Callie, why don't you tell us a little bit about some of the things you've seen, and Tyler, you can talk to us a little about some of the things you've seen as well. And then after we do that, we can come back and we talk about the continuity of operations specifically. So Tyler, why don't you kick off? What have you seen in the past 6 weeks that, that raises our concern, that makes us keep our focus on security?
Well, one of the big things is blatant attacks, DDoSes, things along those lines. Multi-gig attacks are fairly common in this kind of time.
And these are DDoS attacks, right?
Yeah, DDoS attacks.
Right.
We saw, it's pretty common to see, 50, 60 gig attacks if you've got the upstream connectivity to support it. So, these things aren't going away, and they're certainly not getting any smaller.
Right.
It's been, you see low-level, kind of low and slow type attacks that people are picking up in their IDS, IPS, things like that. That type of thing as well. So.
Yeah. So are we seeing more of those attacks coming now than what we had in the past? And has there been a drop off in other types of attacks, like maybe ransomware? Because that's what we spoke of ransomware last time we were on.
Well, so I don't think the ransomware thing has really gone away. There's just so much other stuff in the news that it's not getting the top headline like it was. I think the volume is still just the same as it was. One of the, like I said a minute ago, the bigger thing is there's been kind of an uptick in volumetric type attacks that are going after kind of your connectivity level things, trying to knock services offline.
All right, cool. So you're emphasizing, like I am, that we need to maintain a view of continuous monitoring, make sure that we aren't losing sight of the actual attacks that are occurring when people are focused on something else like COVID. Is that your perspective as well?
Well, exactly. I mean, your teams are tied up provisioning remote users if they haven't been caught in the mad rush of doing that a few weeks ago.
Mhm.
So that's been a big emphasis. But at the same time, keeping those, your operations centers, keeping their eyes on the prize, basically, and keeping an eye out and looking for things.
Right. And Callie, from your perspective on the auditing side of things, on the compliance side of things, what have you seen that's been handled a little differently in the past couple of weeks? What is the uptick on your side? What should we continue to be watching for and continuously monitoring on the compliance side?
Absolutely. I was actually going to tack into Tyler there and mention that we have seen a lot more people reaching out and asking for our plans, things that we're doing specifically for our managed services customers, but how we at DataBank are responding to the uptick in these attacks and how we are responding to everybody working from home and everything being different in our environment right now than we've seen it, at least in our generation. And so we've seen more customer communication, a lot of people reaching out saying, hey, how can we better protect ourselves for things that you're already preparing for, and what do we need to write into our own plans? What are the contingency plans that are already being implemented for us, and how do we need to add on to those? We've had a lot of interaction from people and their auditors looking for more evidence or additional evidence than they would normally be looking for, making sure that customers are protecting themselves in all facets and not just in the standard checkbox. We do these every year, but we're having a lot more continuous monitoring type interaction with our customers, as well as with our own assessors for what we at DataBank are doing and how we are shifting. I've also seen a lot more interaction from other organizations, a lot of webinars and podcasts and things of that nature that are addressing security from a distance, staying home, how we're securing our homes while we're working from home. And so that's not just coming to me, that's coming to anybody in our industry, and how we're shifting to this new normal and what that's going to look like going forward.
Great. So are our customers or our auditors, assessors out there, are they asking too many questions? Or are they asking questions that are too deep and really potentially none of their business in the sense that we have our own internal and confidential plan? Are they demanding things? Are they asking for too much? Or is it about right in your estimation?
I haven't seen or felt too much of a deep dive. I have seen an increase in volume of the ask. People that maybe in years past haven't reached out for as much are now looking for, where can I get this documentation? How can I show my assessors or my auditors or my own security team what's in place? How your third party is assessing you, things that we provide to our customers through our support portal, things that we've provided to our customers through our ticketing system, but that maybe in the past they weren't really looking for. And now they're starting to ask those questions. They're starting to put it on their radar of, hey, we should probably be making sure that these things are in place so that when things occur or if things occur, we're protected and we're prepared.
Great. So there's a big difference between continuity of operations plans and business continuity plans, disaster recovery plans. Here at DataBank, we initiated a continuity of operations plan. And the difference between these situations, these different types of documents, is your business continuity plan is designed to keep your business running when something with the business itself fails. The disaster recovery plan is designed to react or respond to a situation that causes your primary function of your business to become unavailable with the intent of bringing it up quickly. But I look at continuity of operations plans as in it for the long haul. The other two plans, BCP and DR, they're designed with absolutely very strict and specific times of return to operations or recovery of operations type functions, whereas the continuity of operations says the day that we initiate the continuity of operations plan, going forward until we shut it down, our intent is to maintain the high level of operations that we had before the plan was initiated. So at DataBank, we've initiated the continuity of operations plan, and we've identified on our website through blog posts to our customers that we are fully operational. But Callie, why don't you talk to us a little bit about some of the key features that are important within the continuity of operations plan that actually may even be similar to a BCP plan or even a DR plan that people should be looking for to put into their own plan? Because I'm guessing that most companies don't have a continuity of operations. They've got a BCP or a DR plan. So let's talk about some of those specifics that are in there that you and your team actually wrote our COVID plan. So what do you have inside those that could be useful for our customers and our listeners?
I think some of the things that have been most important are how we, as an organization, are scaling back our presence on site while still maintaining that 24/7 operation, how we are determining and creating our essential personnel, and how we're reacting to customers doing the same. So we obviously have a ton of co-location customers, and they are on site. They are coming in. They are needing to be in the facilities. And so how do we respond to that accordingly while still maintaining, you know, as normal as possible operations? And I think that's one of our big things right now that we're seeing is customers reaching out for, what do I do? How do I, if I need to come to the center, what is the process for that? And so one of the things that we've specifically addressed in some of those blog posts you were talking about is what we're asking of customers. You know, can you submit it via remote hands? What are things you actually physically need to be there for? What can we assist you in doing? And if you're coming to the facilities, what are the protections that you need to take? What are the questions that we're going to ask when you arrive at the facility? What are things that you need to prepare for before sending someone ahead? Obviously, a lot of companies have travel restrictions, and that doesn't just include on airplanes. Some companies, that includes any travel at all. They don't want people leaving their homes. The stay-at-home orders are in place in a lot of different areas that we have facilities. And so how can we help our customers? And writing into your own plan, okay, we can't go to the DataBank facility. How do we do what we need to get done? How do we swap things out? How do we interact? And making sure that they're aware that our support team is still operating 24/7, making sure that they know that our facilities are still open, but we are going to ask some additional questions and put in some additional checkpoints, making sure that they realize that we do have remote hands available to them, no matter, you know, co-location managed services, whatever it is, that we can assist you because we are already on site. And I think that's kind of been the biggest thing for us as continuity of business, is making sure that customers are aware of that, how we keep operating to help them keep operating.
That is a great phrase. How we keep operating so that they can keep operating. That is perfect, because that is the heart and the soul of the continuity of operations, is that we continue operating so they can continue operating. Whereas again, a BCP or a DR plan is actually recovering from a failure. Continuity is preventing the failure. So Tyler, why don't you tell us from a security operations perspective? I know we already talked about Conmon, but security operations perspective, what's changed inside of a continuity of operation plan for you?
You know, overall, we're very fortunate to have a team who was pretty effectively remote, aside from a couple people on the team, and we were able to get them set up at home, and nothing has really changed. You know, you have people in and out. You know, we're kind of continuing business as usual, other than there may be a little bit more background noise than some people are used to, with, you know, kids being out of school and at home and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, largely nothing's changed for us. We're still moving. It's been pretty impressive. And when you think about how other teams have had to cope, and, you know, think about it in the greater, you know, country, world, however you want to put it, so much disruption, and we're kind of chugging along here and making things happen like we have been.
So you're just
Tyler,
continuing to operate as normal, because that's the point of the continuity of operations, is operate as normal, make adjustments for what's going on outside of you. Tyler, Callie, you were going to say something?
yeah, Tyler, have you seen any change in that business as normal with the other organizations that you guys work with the systems that we employ and things like that? Have you had any issues with reaching out for support, or are other companies putting in similar, standard operating processes?
Our vendor supply chain, however you'd want to call it, has been, they've been great. Most of them have already had provisions for remote work. A lot of the people we work with on a regular basis are already remote, just the same as we are. So it's been pretty solid. To kind of tack on to a little bit what you were talking about earlier, Callie, the kind of the stuff we're seeing coming in from our client base is getting on the security side. We're seeing customers and their auditors probing more, asking a little bit more invasive questions, but I don't know if that's necessarily a function of the current environment or just kind of the natural progression of things as audit and security and compliance kind of becomes more central focused to a lot of organizations.
Great.
Probably
okay,
a little bit of both.
Yep, probably true. All right, so we have just a couple minutes more before we wrap up our podcast for today, but I want each of you to give us one or two things that you think that this COVID situation has fundamentally changed in our world. It doesn't even have to be security related if you don't want it to be, that we won't return to, if you will. For example, I'll give you one of mine, and that is, I think the work from home situation is here to stay, and it's here to stay in force. And so from a security perspective, we're going to have to deal with that long term. And coupled with that is, I think a lot of people are going to see risk of living in high density environments, and they're going to move to more rural, more suburban, or less dense type of environments, to bedroom communities, if you will. So we're also going to have to deal moving forward with a strained internet until 5G comes along, until higher capacities come along inside some of these more rural type of environments. So, Callie, why don't we start off with you? One or two things, not a huge explanation, but just one or two things that you think is here to stay that COVID has changed, and then we'll move over to Tyler.
Yeah, I would agree with what you were saying, and specifically on the strained internet. I think one of the things that's going to come out of this, not security related, but in our school systems, is we have now shown that we can do online learning, not full time, because I don't see that coming, but I do see snow days and things like that, natural disasters and things being replaced with this tele-learning that our students are doing now, and having, instead of kids are home for snow days and we have to make those up at the end of the year or whatever the day off might be, having those pre-planned online learning days, and potentially even for something like a teacher in-service day, being able to have the students continuing to do work while the teachers are in their in-services, or having everybody online in a teacher in-service online and students online, and all of that being pre-prepped and pre-planned versus the students having to make up those days or having extra days off school. We may see a change in some of the calendars for our school systems because of that. I also think that we're going to see a big increase in delivery services and online shopping. We're going to see people that don't want to go back to being in a brick and mortar all the time, because they've now discovered they can do all of this from home, and they're staying healthier and safer because of it, specifically with our at-risk communities. Anybody that has more health challenges, anybody that's at higher risk for any kind of flu virus, cold virus, pandemic virus, whatever it might be, those services I think we're going to see come up in places that are more rural, where they haven't been before.
All right. Tyler, what about you?
So I think you're going to see, I think society as a whole, we got a lot of shifting that's going to happen. There's going to be a lot of different ways all at once, as we've seen. But you're going to have, my opinion is, like Callie said, education is going to be. It's been I think an awakening for people in that field and the students and the administrations and whatnot. There's, I got my first grader doing Zoom calls. When did that become a thing?
Nice. So they're not just pretending to work with you. They're actually doing their own Zoom calls now.
Right. It's just kind of it's blown my mind. And he borrowed my headset the other day, and he was on my wife's laptop doing a Zoom call with like 15 of his other first grade friends, and their teacher.
My 4-year-old's doing preschool that way, so.
Yeah.
And so I think, like your higher ed institutions, we've got the student loan crisis, if you will, that's going on or been ongoing, and that whole thing. And I think that will, between that and the current situation we're in, I think you'll see a lot more pressure on higher ed to move further into the e-learning space. Your WGUs and SNHUs of the world kind of gain more traction, things like that potentially. And I think it's there's going to be a lot change. Retail is going to have to either bounce back and adapt or evolve, or they're going to be in a bad position.
Right.
From a brick and mortar perspective. It's
absolutely
kind of scary in a sense, but
yeah. Well, everything that's old is new again, or vice versa. So here we are. Some changes are occurring in our world. So it's been a great conversation. Dane, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Yeah, well, great chat, and I think having this available so that everybody can kind of hear how you and your group sees things is really important and hopefully very helpful to everyone. We'd like to thank everyone for listening. We hope you came away with some useful information. Please feel free to reach out to any of us individually on LinkedIn. In addition, you can email the group at CISO@databank.com. We hope to catch you next time around on DataBank's CISO Corner. Be safe, stay secure, and we'll catch you next time.